Well, first of all, we need to explain that there are 12 individuals on 6 on each side of Jesus. That's important. Why is there 12 people at the Last Supper? The Last Supper is, of course, the last Passover meal, because the Jews they celebrated the coming of spring, the new spring each year. They call it the Passover, because the sun was passing officially over the equator, coming back to the northern hemisphere. So they celebrated what we call today, what Christians call Easter. The Jews had an Easter also, but they called it the Passover. And the Passover was the sun passing over from the southern part of the planet to across the equator. They passed over the equator, the sun did, bringing us our new life from spring. So it was dead in winter, so it's springing back to life in spring. And so the 12 people at the table with Jesus represents the 12 months of the year with the sun. Jesus is referred to as the sun. And there's only one Jesus. But why? Because there's only one sun. We don't have 6 of them. We only got one sun that warms the earth and brings light to the world. So Jesus is referred to as the light of the world. Of course, he's God's son, the light of the world. And so to the right of Jesus, you will see at the table is a woman, one of the 12 months of the year, one of the chosen 12 apostles, or the 12 brothers of Joseph, or the 12 tribes of Israel, or the 12 on the breastplate of the high priest, the 12 stones, the sacred stones. Everything in the Bible is done in a sequence of 12. Why? Because there's only 12 months in the year. And the 12 months of the year, the sun is giving light to the world. And so therefore, the last Passover meal will be in the age of Aquarius for us. And so it's called the Last Supper. No, it's the last Passover meal. And so to the right of Jesus, you will see a woman. She is considered to be one of the 12 apostles, was a woman. Why? Because the 12 apostles represent the 12 months of the year, or the 12 signs of the zodiac. And one of the primary symbols of the zodiac is a female symbol, and it's called, the female is called Virgo, the virgin. This is why Jesus is said to have been born of a virgin, because spring was always represented by Virgo, the constellation in the zodiac called Virgo the virgin. So naturally, one of the guests at the Last Supper would be Virgo, the virgin, Jesus' mother. And so Jesus is born of a virgin. No, Virgo. The virgin is Virgo, the constellation of Virgo, as one of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And so the one on the right, you will see as a woman, which is Virgo. I don't have the picture in front of me, the picture of the person on the left. But you will see all 12 are divided into 4 groups of 3. There's 3 groups on the one side, and 3 groups next to it, then Jesus, and there's 3 groups, and there's a 4th group of 3. So why are there 4 groups of 3? Because it's summer, spring, summer, autumn, winter. The 4 symbols of the sun in the age of the life of the sun. Right. The 4 seasons. The 4 seasons are the 4 groups of 3. And so each season is referred to as 3 months of the year. And so that's why today we see that the constellations of the 12 signs of the zodiac with their master teacher, which is the sun is giving his life so that you might live. And the reason why is because the sun is pure energy, and if it didn't give you energy every day, you couldn't grow food and you couldn't grow nothing, and you would be dead if it doesn't rise tomorrow. So that's why we have a risen sun. And there's only one sun out there. We don't have 5 of them. So therefore, Jesus is the only begotten son. He's the only son we have, is God's son, the light of the world. So the whole story of the New Testament is astrological, is called astrotheology. If you go back into history and trace all of this, trace it all back, you will see it goes back to Hinduism. It goes back to ancient Egypt and the Hindus. This is an incredible story that has been misrepresented to the world, and that's why there's so much confusion today. So just keep in mind that whole picture of the Last Supper is actually an astrological symbol of the sun, God's son, the light of the world, the sun we call Jesus. He's in the middle of his 12 months of the year, or the 12 signs of the zodiac. Each one of those individuals represents one of the signs of the zodiac. Sun worship has always been the center for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It all goes back to India. It's a strange, incredible story. And when you think about the Germans, they were sun worshippers also. The reason why there was we're given the understand that Jesus was tortured is because he said of himself, he said in the scriptures, I am the truth and the light. And therefore, since he is the truth and the light, what is being said there symbolically as a metaphor is that Jesus, every time you read about Jesus in the New Testament, you're reading about the truth and the light. And therefore, whatever happens to the truth and the light happened to Jesus. Whatever was said about Jesus, that's what is said about the truth and light. Whatever is done to Jesus, that's what the world does to the truth and the light. So Jesus simply represents symbolically the truth and the light. And therefore, we know that the world is not interested, generally speaking, in the truth or the light. We have the story, the symbolic story, that makes the point very clearly, if you remember, the governor of the city, Pontius Pilate. But he brings Jesus out, and he brings out another man that was in prison, and he says to the city, the whole city is there at this big gathering, and the governor of the city says to the people, according to your tradition, you have a tradition in your religion that says once a year, I can release a prisoner. One prisoner I can release as the governor, and I can release him. So today we have two people that were in prison. We have a man named Barabbas, and everyone knows Barabbas, who he is. He's very famous for being who he is. He's a criminal and a liar, and that's why he's been in prison all these years. He's a criminal and a liar, and there's no good in him. So then he said, and on my right I have a man that I have Jesus, who is very famous for healing the sick and raising the dead and trying to make peace with the whole world of mankind and make everyone and help everyone to get a better life. So he represents the truth and the light. Which one do I give to you? And the scripture says in the Bible that with one voice, there was no dissension, with one voice, everyone in the city cried out, give us Barabbas. That's very famous in scripture in the Bible. It says, when Jesus was presented and Barabbas was presented, the whole city said, give us Barabbas. Why? It's a symbolic truth about life. When the city or the person or the family or the city or the county or the state or the country or the people of the earth are presented with the truth and the light, or the lie, the murderous lies and criminality, the people, the humans on the earth will always say, give us Barabbas. We don't want the truth and the light. Like the movie said, what do you want from me? And the boy said, I want the truth. And the guy said, you can't handle the truth. Mm-hmm. So that was the story in the Bible when Pontius Pilate is presenting the murderous criminal and Jesus representing the truth and the light. The people said, you Barabbas. Why? Because you can't handle the truth. You don't want the truth. Mm-hmm. The truth and the light is to be put to persecuted or nailed to a stake and let it die. Nobody is interested in the truth and the light. We want to hear what we want to hear. We want to hear what we will support. We will pay big money to our churches. We will put a lot of money into churches and preachers so they can drive around and fly around in their beautiful jet planes and their Lincolns and their Continentals, and they can live very high. Why? Because we'll pay them because they tell us what we want to hear. We want to hear that the Lord loves us and that no matter what we do, we're still loved, and when we die, we're going to go to heaven with the Lord, and we're going to see our family and all of that. That's what we want to hear. We don't want to hear the truth and the light. We don't care about the truth and the light. Get rid of it. Hang it up, nail it to a stake. We get somebody out there who actually wants to do something to help the people of the world, and they'll kill him. Right. They'll assassinate him in front of you, and nobody will go to jail. Nobody goes to prison when you kill a good man. Anybody who stands up for the truth is going to end up nailed to a cross. Symbolically, you're going to be nailed. You're going to, like Jesus said, the slave is no greater than the master. Right. What they've done to me, they will do to you. They didn't listen to me, and what makes you think they're going to listen to you? So if you try and go out and tell the people what's really going on, like a young man did that was working with the NSA, and he's going to come out and tell us what the NSA and the government's really doing with your information, we will throw him into prison and make him wish to hell he'd have never been born. We'll find every kind of criminal act against him and make him wish he had left the world. You can't handle the truth. And so that's what's going on in the Bible. It's a symbolic story where Jesus represents symbolically the spirit of truth and the light. There was a book, a very scholarly, well put together scholarly book, came out many years ago, and I got a hold of it as soon as it came out because I know about these subjects, and so when I saw it, I thought, there's an interesting book. It was called The Rapture Cult. And it explained the story of where the rapture idea came from. And so the idea basically was what the Apostle Paul was talking about. Once you see the light on something, you are changed forever. Instantly, you are changed once you see something. And you may be going through life in the dark, but once you actually, for the first time, realize the actual truth of what you're seeing, then it will change your life and you'll be totally different. You'll be totally different once you see it. And so in the book, The Rapture Cult, the author talked about where the rapture idea came from. And he brought it back to in England. Many, many years ago, there was a very extraordinarily wealthy lady who was very, very religious, and she was giving large sums of money to the church. And but she ended up being an alcoholic who was experiencing the DTs. She was beginning to see things because she was an alcoholic, a confirmed alcoholic. And she had all kinds of strange experiences because she was going through withdrawals or whatever. But she was still very wealthy and her money was still spendable. And so the church always respected her because she is the money of the church. She's financing the whole operation. Mm-hmm. And so they never said anything. They didn't try and do much to help her with her alcoholism, but they didn't mind taking the money that she was giving them.
Oh, well, they never criticize the people that are actually paying their bills. I mean, come on.
Yeah, she's the one that was paying all the bills, so the church went along with it and let her be a drunk. You're not going to change her, but if you try and stop her and try and clean her up, she's going to be very angry, and the money's going to be shut off, and that's it. So just mind your own business. Let her be what she wants to be, as long as the checks are coming. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. And so she had a vision from the Lord, she said, when she was 3 sheets to the wind. She was an alcoholic, and when she was totally 3 sheets to the wind, she had a vision from the Lord, and the Lord told her that when you pass away, you're going to be raptured into heaven. And that was the word that she said the Lord told her. That she would be raptured, and she's going to go to heaven from the earth. There will come a day when it's time for her to go, and she will go directly into heaven. That's what the Lord told her after the bottle of whiskey. And so she kept ranting and raving about that to the clergyman in the church, that you need to teach this to the people. There's going to be a rapture. And I know because the Lord told me last night, after I finished those 2 bottles off, the Lord talked to me and he told me there was going to be a rapture. Mm. And so it was actually an old lady, a wealthy old lady in England, from what I can remember from the book came out in the 60s. But it was an old lady in England who, and the book is called The Rapture Cult. See if you can find it on the web. You might be able to order it from the bookstore. The Rapture Cult. And she talked about how she told the clergy, look, I'm financing this church, or you teach the people what I'm telling you. You tell them there's going to be a rapture, and they're going to be raptured into heaven. And so the church clergymen, they started letting her talk, and they started promoting it. And it got to be so interesting and so delightful. Other churches began teaching it. Before you know it, it was going all around town. This old lady's money had really struck a nerve, and she was teaching the rapture, and everybody else started teaching the rapture. And so the churches, they don't care one way or the other if it's true or not. They just go along with the get along, because after all, it's just a business. The church is an entertainment, and that's what the people want to hear. So we will tell them. We will tell them, and we'll inculcate that into our teachings. So before you know it, the whole idea of the rapture became the thing to do, the subject to talk about. And so Christians were talking about the rapture, when in point of fact, it was a drunk old lady with her money that caused the rapture to be taught. And it's in a book, and it's not the only book, incidentally. There have been other books written on the subject. Right. But that was the first one I came across, called The Rapture Cult. No adults like to be laughed at and ridiculed for being stupid because they said something dim-witted and stupid, and people are laughing at him, and now they mock him and laugh at him. Nobody likes to be mocked and laughed at because they said something foolish or stupid. And so that's why we don't say anything. We just keep our mouths shut, and we go along to get along with the group. Wherever all of our friends are going, that's where we'll go. And whatever our friends are listening to, that's what we want to hear. Whatever our friends are eating, that's what we'll have. And so we want to be part of the group. We don't want to be laughed at and mocked by our fellow man and put into a position where people are laughing at you. And that's typical of humans. We don't like being mocked and laughed at. We want to be appreciated by our fellow man. So we want to go to the ball game with everybody. When they're all drinking beer and going to the ball game, we'll go too, so we can be a part of them, and they'll love us. And that's why the scripture says, if you continue to run with your friends after you learn the real truth, then you're going to find out they don't want you. They don't like you. They don't want you around them. Why? Because you know things they don't know. And you don't go with them to the ball games. You don't go with them to the beer drinking. You don't party with them. You don't have anything to do with them, and they know it, and they know that they are stupid, and they know that you're smart, and they don't want anything to do with you. And so this is why Jesus said, what they have done to me, they will do to you. If you start studying and educating yourself, and you find out the real truth, and you are in the light, and you now got the light and the truth, you're going to find out that the slave is no greater than the master. What they have done to me, the son, they will do to you. because the sun brings light into the world, and we kill God's son. We nailed him to a stake because we don't want to hear the truth and the light.
What does this represent, the pyramid with the eye?
It represents the Jewish Messiah. It represents to Christians Jesus. Now, that's going to be very difficult for both Jews and Christians to swallow. But I'm telling you, when you do the homework, you will find that the word in the Old Testament, both in the book of Psalms and once in the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, the Messiah is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. And twice in the New Testament, Jesus is referred to in Christianity as the same thing, the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. There is a world of difference between a cornerstone, which most Christians believe Jesus to be a cornerstone. Mm-hmm. No, the scripture is you're incorrectly looking at the word. Go back and look at the word, and you will find that chief cornerstone, both in Hebrew and in Greek, means a triangle perched on top of a pyramid. So the eye on the dollar bill represents Jesus in Christianity or the Messiah in Judaism.
How about the seal now?
Well, the
other side
great
of the
seal,
dollar.
I think, is very interesting. It's called the presidential seal, the Great Seal of America. You will see above the eagle, you'll see 13 stars. And what do those 13 stars, the configuration that the 13 stars make up, what is it?
Well, I would have thought maybe the original colonies.
No, well, yes, but what do the 13 stars together, look at it, what does it make up together as a composite, all 13 stars together?
It looks like a sun or something like that?
No.
What?
Star of David.
I'm close.
Yeah.
I said the sun, that's a star.
Well, yeah, but it's 13 stars in the configuration of a hexagram. And you will see that the 13 stars are connected to the 13 leaves, the 13 arrows, the 13 stripes on the flag, and so 13 is very important, and it's based on the Messiah and his chosen 12. Jesus had 12 apostles, the 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel. And so when you connect the Messiah with his chosen 12 makes 13. This is why we had 13 colonies. No one's ever asked the question, why 13 colonies? Doesn't that sound a little suspicious? You know?
Well,
and
yeah,
so,
why?
well, I mean, so once you see that the layers on the pyramid, go back to the pyramid. There are 13 layers on the pyramid.
Good point.
Yeah, and so all of this has to do with biblical symbolism.
Why do they hide things in symbols?
Well, it's because it's kind of like an in-house communication. They
understand.
Yeah, they understand what they're doing, and they figure that most Americans are not concerned with this kind of thing, so why bother?
Is it like a club that has a certain handshake or symbol or something?
No doubt about that.
It's something between them.
No doubt about it. And the symbolism is Masonic. And it goes back into the Bible. And as I said, the chief cornerstone in the Old Testament is a symbol for the Messiah. So what we're looking at is Jewish symbol for the Messiah in the pyramid, because the word in Hebrew is a word which means a triangle or a pentagram, a pentacle on top of a pyramid. And as I said, in Christianity, the word for Jesus is a chief cornerstone the builders rejected. The word in Greek is a word for a triangle perched on top of a pyramid. You cannot pay a bill in America. You can discharge a debt. It's like walking across the carpet and then touching a piece of metal. It discharges. So this is why when you're in the military, when you get out, they discharge you.
All right.
Because you can discharge a debt. You cannot pay a bill. But like I said, if you give me a bill, if you were a painter and you painted my house and you say it's
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000. Then I reach in my pocket and give you $1,000 in bills. I give you 10 $100 bills. So that's $1,000 bill. And so therefore you owe me $1,000 now. And so we have discharged the debt. And so it all goes back to maritime admiralty law, the way the banks actually in fact work, the way our country actually works. And most people have no idea in the world how laws work.
Do our leaders even know, Jordan?
I don't even know. Maybe at the very top they do, but most people in government have no idea in the world. They're like anyone else working for a corporation. They just do their job. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
And the boss upstairs takes care of the rest of the business. But Once you begin to understand how our government works, why do you have banks? You have banks because they're on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Because it's true, because your money is a currency. It's a cash flow, liquid assets. And once you begin to understand how you cannot borrow money from a bank, it's against the law to borrow money from a bank.
But I do.
You cannot borrow money from a bank. If I go in and put $100,000 into a bank and you come in 2 days later and borrow $100,000 to pay for your boat,
I've taken your money.
Yeah, no, that ain't going to work. You're not taking my money because if you don't pay for it, I'm out. No, that's not the way.
But according to Edward Griffin, who wrote a book about the Federal Reserve,
yes,
he tells me that banks are giving away our money, and they shouldn't be.
Well, in a matter of speaking, but the point being is that you cannot borrow money from a bank. What they do when you buy a new car, the new car has an appraisal paperwork, and so the appraisal says that your new car is worth $38,000. Therefore, you have what is called commercial paper that's worth $38,000. What the bank will do, if you've got good credit, they will open up a bank account in your name, but you don't know it. They'll open up a bank account and will forge your name. They will write your name and write your name on the new bank account. Now you have a bank account and you didn't even know it. Now they take that $38,000 worth of commercial paper and put it into the bank account. Now you have $38,000 in the bank. Of course, they're holding it. So now they write you out a check for $38,000 and you give it to the car company. And now it's all on paper. They haven't given you anything. They haven't loaned you anything. They took the value of the car, which is commercial paper, put it into the bank account, write a check on that, and now you think that they loaned you money. No, banks do not loan money.
Yet you have to pay them the $38,000 plus interest.
That's exactly right. It's just a game. The reference works. If you go to a library and go to any Christian seminary and go through all the reference works, you will see that the eye on the top of the dollar bill, on the top of the pyramid, represents the Messiah of the Old Testament and Jesus in the New.
That sounds like a good thing.
Well, of course it is. And so, as a matter of fact, the pyramid is actually this King Solomon's temple. But most people do not study the subject enough to understand what I'm saying. But if you go into the reference works and look at the words and look them up, you will find that there's a whole different understanding among the academics of the world and the ancient religions than what we are, used to understanding today. Let me say this, as Kennedy would say, let me say this about that. I have the highest of admiration and regard for the Bible. And I believe that the New Testament story, the story of Jesus and the complete New Testament, is a metaphor. Especially the four Gospels are a metaphor, a symbolic story. And once you begin to look at the New Testament story of Jesus as a symbolic metaphor, then things begin to make sense. And I've been looking at this for 45 years, and I'm telling you, I have the highest respect for true Christianity, the teachings of Jesus. I have no problem with it all. But what my problem is with corporate religions who have mistranslated, misunderstood, and misled the people into believing things which are not true. I'm telling you, there's a profound story in the New Testament that you are not going to believe when you find out the key, when you get the key words and understand how this story flows. You begin to see the entire New Testament, especially the four Gospels, is an encoded metaphor. It's telling you something if you can read between the lines. And what you need to do is understand the symbols, what is Jesus symbolically in the New Testament. Well, we can get into that later. What I'm thinking about doing is making all of my files available as a product. Just downloading my computer over all these years, and just downloading it into some kind of a product and just get the files out there, because I've got over 400 files just in one in one computer. I got 300 files filled with documents and pictures on all kinds of subjects.
What did you do in the old days when we didn't have computers?
I used to live at UCLA every day. I'd go down UCLA all night long until they kicked you out. I'd go down to USC, go out to Berkeley. I spent days and weeks and months at the seminary libraries, just photocopying hundreds and hundreds of documents. It's just an incredible world of hidden knowledge that people who don't know this kind of thing, you don't know where to look. I learned a long time ago, many years ago, about the symbols and words and terms and how they work. And I'm telling you, it's an extraordinary story.
Gods of the ancient and prehistoric ancient world, these ancient gods, Zechariah believed and was then attempting to explain to us that these were actual real entities. I would call them EBEs. This is what the U.S. government has called the extraterrestrials, EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities. And so I put them kind of in the same place what Zechariah Sitchin was talking about, that there were ancient extraterrestrial biological people that were here, and they go on to tell from there that they helped create us. The word for God in the what we call Hebrew is El. El is God, and so in the Bible, especially the Christian Bible, when you read Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But that's not exactly what it says in the original, because if you read the Hebrew Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth." It doesn't say in the beginning El created the heavens and the earth. It's Elohim.
Yeah.
And Elohim is a plural, just as if you put if you spell car, C-A-R, but you put an apostrophe S, it becomes more than one. It becomes cars. And so this is what we're reading, what the correct translation would be in Genesis 1:1, is in the beginning the Elohim, or in the beginning the gods created the heavens and the earth. And of course that would explain why in the rest of Genesis, when it's talking about God, God says, "Come, let us make man in our image after our likeness."
Yeah, the word "our."
Let us. Yeah, let us. And so who's us? And many years ago, I talked with a leading rabbi in America. For many years, I was talking with him back in the 60s. And he told me, very interesting the way he said it. He said, "Go back and read the sentence the way it was written. Don't put anything into it that's not there." So when you see that the gods said, "Come, let us make man in our image after our likeness," and Christians will tell you, see, there it is, right there in the Bible in Genesis, where God says, "Come, let us make man in our image and likeness." So there's a scripture shows God created man. But Rabbi told me, no, that's not what it says. It doesn't say God created man. Go back and read it. It says, and then he emphasized the sentence. He said, what it's actually saying is, God said, "Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Not make man. Man's already here. So come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. When whoever the gods are, and from wherever they have come from out there, even a 6-year-old child, if you ask where is God, they will point into the heavens, and Christians talk about God is in heaven. Well, the heavens is the sky above you, the heavens. Well, if God's in the heavens, and his angels are in the heavens, then that means he's extraterrestrial. He's not from here. And so if he's not from here, and there's more of, and there's many of them, then what we're talking about is in the beginning, the gods created us, meaning somebody came here a long time ago and saw the indigenous creatures that we today refer to them as hominids, or the Neanderthal mans, in our mind, the cavemen type of idea, and came here, looked around, saw these ancient hominids, and decided to come. Let us make them look like us and be like us. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. and so they crossbred with the hominid creatures that were already here, and ultimately one day they gave birth to us today. And so we have come a long way as a human creation, but we're nothing like the original hominid creatures from thousands and thousands of years ago. So, and that idea that we have been able to evolve so rapidly, so quickly. Within 100 and so years, we've gone from, like you said, from horse and buggy to lasers and all kinds of high technology. And people don't realize that humans are not that clever. We've had help. Somehow or another, we have help in being able to evolve intellectually and technologically quickly. Somebody is helping us. Somebody is behind us, feeding us information. And so that was basically what Zechariah Sitchin was talking about, that somewhere in the ancient history of the human family on the earth, someone came here from another place in the universe, saw the indigenous creatures, crossbred with us, and eventually probably crossbred many times until they finally got what they wanted, and that was us, the way we are today. And so that just opens up a can of worms as far as I'm concerned. It always amazed me, because I've been to Egypt with youth, and I've been there 3 times and spoke in Egypt myself. And, everywhere you go, the Egyptians that we talk to, they all seem to want you to understand that they are from a pharaonic bloodline, that they are direct descendants from the Pharaoh and all that. And in point of fact, it's ludicrous on the face of it. The ancient Egyptians, we don't know who they were. We have no idea in the world who they were or where they came from. But whoever they were able to build these enormous temples and just extraordinary stuff. If you see the pyramid and go inside the pyramid, as you and I have done. And so just to hear people who want you to believe that they are direct descendants of the ancient Egyptians is just, to my way of thinking, ludicrous. I understand they want to be proud of their country and what's on that land, but they didn't build it. My God, I mean, if you roam around Egypt as we did continually 3 different times, and you probably more times, you see the way that they live today and their buildings and how they live today, the Egyptians. And if it wasn't for the Europeans and the Americans who build beautiful hotels and gorgeous lawns and pools and just gorgeous resort places, but the Egyptians themselves, it's hard to believe that people who live like that were direct descendants of the pharaohs who built monstrous, incredible stuff. So I understand, but I also understand, no, the Egyptians of today that are there are not the direct descendants from Pharaoh and from the ancient Egyptians. When you see the pyramids and go inside the Great Pyramid, incidentally, the middle pyramid seems to be the larger of the 3. There were 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau, 3 main pyramids. The middle one is the larger, but that's not the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's not the Great Pyramid at all, even though it's a little larger, but it's not the Great one. The Great Pyramid is the first one, and it's not quite the same size as the middle one. But that first one is a dazzling piece of architecture. When you go inside and see what it's like inside, it's extraordinary. So I just think that Zechariah Sitchin's work opened up a whole new can of worms. And like you said, he was always fighting off the detractors and people who were trying to say that he didn't know what he was talking about, he was a fool, and talking about when he talked about the possibility of there being extraterrestrial life forms who have come here from other worlds thousands and thousands of years ago and intervened in our natural evolution. I think that is the word, rather than creationism or evolution. I think the correct subject to look at is intervention. Somebody came here and helped us evolve quickly and created a different kind of man. We know we can do it today. We can crossbreed, we can play with DNA and start creating different kinds of creatures and different kinds of humans. That's dangerous stuff, but we know, people are doing it. We know that there are powerful people in the world who are trying to do just that, to manipulate our genetics and create a different kind of human. Well, that's what Zecharia Sitchin was talking about, that somebody came here from a long time ago, and I do mean a long time ago, and began to manipulate our DNA and crossbreed with us, and eventually, with enough crossbreeding, it brought us to today, who we are today. We're doing monstrous things that the ancient peoples and peoples are even today around the world are not capable of doing, but there is among mankind today people who can do, building great bridges and great high-rise buildings, and so it's interesting, the natural destiny and the evolution of the human family. And Zecharia Sitchin was one of the right people that started us thinking that way. I'm totally convinced that we humans have been slowly but surely being led along. A classic example that I would use to back up what I'm saying is Nikola Tesla. When he was like 85 years old in New York, they gave the scientific community gave him a big awards dinner in his honor in New York, and they invited him there. And after the dinner, there was speeches made, and Nikola Tesla was able to address the audience, and he talked about how he came by having all of these wonderful, extraordinary experiments that gave us alternating current, lighting, radio, all kinds of technological advances that Nikola Tesla has given to the world. And Tesla himself said, that when he would go to sleep at night, he would have a pad and pen by his bed on his night table, and when he awoke in the morning, there would be already written down on the pad in a handwriting, not his, of a new experiment, a new piece of work, and he would then take that pad and go to the laboratory and follow what was said, and be damned if it doesn't work. It would be some new invention that was startling to the whole world. And today we look at all the work of Nikola Tesla, lighting the world and giving us radio. He was the one who gave us radio and electronics. But he said, he would go to bed at night, and the next morning someone had written it down and showed him what to do. So there's a classic example of somebody, not of this world, able to communicate with humans and tell them what they need to do and how they need to do it. And then we are making such progress thinking we're so smart. I don't think we're that smart. I think we're being led in our technology. We're being led somewhere by somebody who is obviously smarter than we are. So many of the ancient cultures that talked about, quote, the gods, end quote, were talking about the same thing, as you said, from Central America, Mesoamerica, to South America, to Egypt, to Sumeria, all over the world, the ancient peoples readily understood the concept that there are higher life forms in the universe that could guide us. It also is the very basis for Christianity and Judaism, especially those two religions, because Christianity talks about God and the angels, the good angels, the bad angels. Well, where is an angel and God? Well, like I said, a child will tell you. If you ask a child, where is God? They'll point straight up into the sky. Mm-hmm. So therefore, God's out there. And if you believe in angels and spirits, yeah, well, they're with God. Where? Out there. They're out there in space. So, in point of fact, our religions today, Judeo-Christianity, acknowledges the idea that God comes from out there, and He has worked His work here on the earth.